Boom. We are alive, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. It's been a few days since we've seen you. Lots has happened in the market. I stand by the original sentiments we've had as soon as we hit what I believe to be a low volume spring. So moving forward, I try to keep things as simple as possible, remove as much noise. We're not driving on, oh my God, I could go up here, could I go down here. Just remove the daily nonsense of price, hype, market sentiment, and really focus on the macro strategies. And so to do that, what I want to do today is start off by looking at, we're going to actually start with Solana today for fun. Okay, so here's Solana, explosive moves. But more importantly, the parts we really want to pick out here is the effective movement of the trading range, because it was just such a beautiful, beautiful accumulation range. Very powerfully sent us into new all-time highs at around the $75 mark. And this area here is really important and something I wanted to go over today. This final trading range outside of the box is usually where we see the SOS and LPS ranges. This is known as a re-accumulation trading range. It is not they're not as long as the standard, these kind of standard accumulations. As a matter of fact, even this accumulation at what was it, like 100 days or something, was actually relatively short, 121 days. But these reaccumulation ranges are usually the stepping stone patterns. And what we're witnessing right now is actually the movements around these stepping stone patterns. So let's take a look at Serum, for instance, here. Serum, I haven't gone through all the troubles to draw up the trading ranges and label them quite as nicely, but here you can see we broke up outside of the box. We've jumped up, we moved into a horizontal trading range, and right now we're about to close above this box and probably move a lot higher. If we look at Avalanche, we see something very similar taking place. Here's the long-term, that 120-day trading range, and what it appears to be now, and actually I would probably put a larger bet on this particular scenario. What we're witnessing is a kind of a bull flag scenario for Avalanche, and these kind of final parts of the trading range, which are reaccumulation ranges. Again, we could draw it horizontally. This is probably a better way to go. These reaccumulation trading ranges are usually fairly short-lived, and then they continue up higher before kind of usually finalizing in a climax. A 1 inch is one of the ones that I've entered here just as a kind of a diary of a trade. For example, and for almost nothing else, I'm much more interested in long-term investing, but I like the strategy. And if you are a good scientist, you should be running your own experiments, right? So you don't want to just talk and not actually run the experiment. So I've taken a position here in 1 inch just to kind of prove a point to myself. We did really well with Avalanche proving that point. But here we are. I suspect that because we're early on in this widening accumulation channel, you're going to see something like this. You'll see another horizontal trading range, and then you'll continue to around the $6 to $9 for 1 inch. Insurace has actually done really well here too. We took some of our earlier positions back there in July. We're just kind of finding some of the interesting stuff that we like. Again, this thesis of heads I win, tails I only lose a little is really drawn out through time. You should be focused on month-over-month acquisitions. And as you increase your interest in those things, you then also generally increase your investment, right? The things you find most interesting are the things you generally should keep investing in. It's kind of a rough watermark, if you will, or like a high watermark for your strategy. The more interest you have in something, the more likely you are to show back up and continue investing your time in it. I think the guitar is a fantastic example, but nonetheless, anything that you are interested in doing, if you keep showing up because you are interested in making that investments, even if they're not monetary, they're strictly just educational, you're learning about DeFi, you're learning about NFTs, etc., this is going to bode really well. As you can see here, I actually think Insurace is kind of right at the final back stages of its box before you see another leg up. The entire market looks like it's in this sentiment right around the corner too. Ethereum, another beautiful representation of our reaccumulation after decline trading ranges. So this is a reaccumulation after decline pattern. We had the top breakout of the box here, and then we had a longer reaccumulation pattern in this horizontal range here. Now this final step that we're in, this horizontal trading range that we just finished, this movement outside of the box, this actually will likely continue us into new all-time highs for Ethereum over the next 2 months, 3 months, 2 to 3 months, if-ish. So I feel very confident about that. Ethereum has actually led this market the entire time. Ethereum moved outside of the box before Bitcoin. Ethereum moved not into new all-time highs, but at least along the acceleration of its trading range before Bitcoin. Now, again, we could make arguments around its movements, but effectively, from everything we've witnessed, if you go back and watch all of our videos from the beginning of this bull market in March of 2020, Ethereum has actually led the pack in terms of price movement outside of the trading range itself. Not, again, you could make larger speculations, but at the trading range we're in right now, Ethereum has moved outside of the final parts of its SOS here and is moving into new all-time highs soon. Whereas here with Bitcoin, if we look at the same trading range, we've actually, we're kind of butted up right up at the end of this horizontal trading range here too. And we've seen moments like this before. For those of you that have been studying with us for quite some time, you'll probably recognize it as soon as I start to draw it. Here is what, there's this rising channel that's been taking place here. Probably a new trading range to some degree, if you'd want to count it like that. This is the SOS that we are in right now. Effectively, so it'd probably even be better to circle it very similar to how we've done with Ethereum. But this, to me, is a sign that the entire market is going to continue into bull cycles, probably for the next 2 or 3 months. There's a lot of people that still think that this is the dead cat bounce, which is just absolutely absurd to me. You do not see new all-time highs in dead cat bounces, so just be very clear about that. And also remember, Solana wasn't the only one. You have Avalanche doing that as well. Even Serum right now is showing really, really strong pressure to try to move forward and into new all-time highs. So I suspect that the entire market will do that. Now, there is some arguments to be made here that there is weakness. The amount of supply signature that we're seeing swing into the market here, and the kind of lack of result to some degree. We're not getting as big a move as we would like. Like the other day, we wicked up to $10 on Serum, but when we look at the market aggregate as a whole, things do look really positive. So there's a few ways. I think we'll kind of finalize today's show by going over those things. What I would like to do is look at the DeFi perp. For those of you that have been following for quite some time, you'll know that the DeFi perp is a perpetual index of some of our DeFi favorites. Here you can see all the way back to the start of the front of the bull market here, where we took our initial positions in the DeFi perps here, the widening megaphone pattern out of the back, the re-accumulation all the way back to the top of that megaphone pattern, and now breaking into the top of the box. And again, this is what's been really interesting, is to see the amount of strength that's come in here, because this was very, very close. Like this moment here, when we had this spring on almost every asset in this sector, we could have very easily continued downwards quite quickly. And the fact that we didn't, I think, is a strong indicator again that the rest of the bull market will continue. And again, here the price for the DeFi perp right now is actually getting above its previous VPR highs, and maybe on its way to new all-time highs as well. There's a few other things we'd like to go over. The private newsletter will be coming out in the next 20 to 48 hours. It'll be like a August wrap up. We're producing a bunch of new styles of ideas and how we curate content and deal flows. For those of you that got into Star Atlas, for those of you that played around Manga Token, the Real Fever that produced a 13x for us. That's what we're mostly interested in, is finding that. That's what we're spending most of my time doing. But we are working on scaling out. So big shout out to Zubin as well for helping us curate content. Big shout out to Daniel, the rest of the Kodiak family there as well, helping build and curate stuff. I think we've got a really exciting decade ahead of us here. So try not to rush things, just one daily step at a time. The pertinent information right now is to understand that as far as I'm concerned, well, and you should come to your own conclusion personally, but as far as I'm concerned, the continuation of the bull market is just underway now, and we can see some pretty clear examples of these horizontal trading ranges doing what they're supposed to do. Avalanche was a beautiful example. Solana, another gorgeous example. 1 inch is right on the tail of that. It looks like Insurace that we were looking at as well, right on the tail. And even Serum, it got outside of its box. Here was the breakout of the box right here, and boom, even from that box to the box breakout, we're up around 80%. So there's a lot of strength in this market still, but you know, for every asset is going to react differently. I think one of the reasons why I've got to play here on 1 inch is just such a beautiful spot, even though it might not create huge amount of highs. It's a very low risk area for me to be in a position especially because we keep building support around the point of control right now, which seems to be the main point of interest for our price targets too. So overall, everything looks fantastic. We will finalize there by going over some of Glassnode's data. What I would like to talk about here are just a few basic on-chain metrics that again lead me to the bullish sentiment. Number one, we are still quite low on the stock to flow model in comparison. I do believe because we have much bigger, smarter, wealthier clients here, this stock to flow model is going to run slowly towards $100,000. I do not believe we're going to have this crazy peak out to like $240,000 that some people are calling for. I think 120 to 150 is a pretty great peak out for the big players that we have in this market. I really don't think they're going to run the price up on themselves. They're smart enough not to do that. The players that are here now have been playing in older equity markets, high frequency markets, all sorts. Pretty much every other market class has now moved into this space too. And when they bring that amount of wealth and time with them, they also bring a fair amount of, they reduce the volatility and they increase the time it takes to get to those higher points because they want to spend as much time accumulating for as low as possible. The other really important ones here too were the reserve to risk ratio. As we were talking about for the majority of the drop all the way down to that $30,000 area, we were actually in a fairly low risk area. We have not yet peaked out into the high risk of the reserve risk area. There's a few other fun things. The stock to flow deflection model is another great representation. It is actually still undervalued to buy Bitcoin as in comparison to mine it. There was the exchange balance percent, which is another, I think a very important kind of metric to pay attention to when we're really wanting to judge what's going on in the kind of the subtlety of the market. Here we go. As you can see, we've actually, since our big supply chunk was taken off around the 21st of July, we have been increasing in price and the supply has gradually been decreasing. Again, I suspect we'll see new all-time highs for Bitcoin, probably into the finalization of this market around December. It was delayed. I actually thought it might be a little sooner. I thought we might peak out in August, but this nice long reaccumulation delay, I think really is going to help us get to that $150,000 mark near the end of December. And then I believe we're probably in for not a bear market, but an accumulation market, which is, I think, the only way you should look at a bear market is just constantly time to accumulate. Anything below previous all-time highs for any asset you're interested in is usually a pretty easy way to go. But everything looks good. I think the strength in the market right now, based off of some of these metrics, is fantastic. Just really quickly, we'll take a look at how Manga's doing for us. Manga, I'm probably saying that wrong just because I'm a silly Costa Rican now. But we took most of our entries in Manga at the start of this market, and we're already up around 70%. We did have a high come in around 200 to 300%. I'm much more interested in the long-term plays. For those of you that entered Fiverr with us, it took about 3 weeks, and then we got a 13x. So the fact that there were points in this where you had a 200 to 300% move, I bet you a lot of people took early profits. I'm not interested in selling. I buy when I'm okay with losing, and then I basically walk away. And if we were right, the upside is infinite and the downside is limited. So excited to see what Manga does. There's a few other that are coming out. Again, the Star Atlas team was super fun to have on the show. If you want to stay up to date with some of the kind of intermediary stuff we go over, you're always welcome to follow us on the Twitter. Follow us on Twitter here. Look at that. We'll give ourselves a like. Again, we're big fans of Star Atlas. I think this relationship between Solana, Star Atlas, and Serum is going to be a really interesting story. Their token launch goes live. If you did not get into the IDO, remember, I'm a big fan of public participation as well. You know, even though we were covering Avalanche at 30 cents during its private launch, it then went on to go public at $1 and stayed at $1 to $3 before going to $60. So even though, you know, you might not have been early, I think you should, even if you didn't get to participate, the thesis still remains the same. If you find something that's interesting, make and increase your investments as your interest in each of these products grow and as success maybe seems more and more undeniable. We'll leave it at that. For the rest, we'll go over maybe one or two quick questions here. Give us a thumbs up if you like this content. I know a lot of you guys are always like, well, Tiho, why don't you just do an episode every day? And, you know, I'm not really good at that. One of the things that strengthened me is really being okay with the randomness. YouTube doesn't like me as much for it, but that's okay. I'm really grateful and proud for the Arcane Bear family we have. We've done really well in terms of, well, all the things we're trying to accomplish. We get such great feedback from you guys. I know so many people in the Bear Den have been extraordinarily successful the last year by joining the private group. So I've been really grateful to be able to have these conversations. I look forward to be able to continue them. Last thoughts, the questions here says the graph. We can go Algorand, nice. We can go over that in a few more. I know you guys had asked about Algorand a bunch in the last post we made too. What's the outlook on Link? Okay, we'll look at Link. FTT is breaking out too. Yeah, I made a post in the private group about FTT and that great example of that reaccumulation trading or that accumulation trading range, that short one right outside of the box. FTT is a beautiful example of that. So if you want to continue to do your study, go take a look at that. We already went over 1 inch as well. I think you're going to continue to see the bull market move through all of these assets. So just keep your eyes open, keep your mind open for the study and the interest of all these fun things, and enjoy the ride, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I've got another NFT art piece we're going to sell for charity. I drew up 2, but I think I'm going to limit it to 1 a month. And so now that it's September, that new month is up, we might do that. If you guys are interested in that type of thing, leave the conversation questions down below. That's where we visited the dog shelter. Again, all proceeds will go to charity of any of the art pieces I sell. You guys, the winner, highest bidder will get to pick the charity. Although we may try to ask that you guys pick charities in Costa Rica so that I could visit them, so that we can like double down and make another video too. So it's more fun instead of just like, hey, we sent them money. It's always fun to show up with cash and surprise someone. Just, I guess if we sell the painting for like $500,000, I'm gonna have to figure out a different way than bringing them cash. But anyways, that's a different story. Anyways, Tio with the Arcane Bear, give us a thumbs up. Thank you all for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. I really appreciate the Bear family support. You guys are all wonderful. We will see you again on the next episode.